to be back with you once again on a primetime show, The Verdict with Swami. We'll take it across to the top CEOs now.
That's right. The verdict with Swami so far isn't looking very good. He isn't very optimistic. He doesn't believe this budget has really done the big reset that we all thought it would. Let's find out what CEOs make of the budget. I'm afraid they're going to be far more charitable to the finance minister than Swami here is. But let's get a sense. We've got Chanda Kochchar, we've got Seshasayee and Sanjay Reddy, someone from the banking sector, someone from the manufacturing space, and of course the infrastructure piece as well. So all of them covered in this discussion. Chanda, I want to start this off with you. What's your sense? Do you think this budget, in a sense, how do you react to this budget? We thought it's going to set the stage for the big reset. What's your view? Has it lived up to the high expectations that have been built around it?
Well, I think the budget is a very good start for the new government. It understands the ground realities. It actually recognizes what needs to be done to take the country forward, and it lays down some very good intentions of what should be done going forward.
Mr. Seshasayee, what's your take on this budget? Expectations were, of course, running very high. Do you think Mr. Jaitley has been able to live up to that? Swami in the studio believes absolutely he hasn't.
This is a budget not suffering from acts of commission, but acts of omission. I would have loved to see some more tangible kind of numbers, some more details in those areas where it is possible for the finance minister to do so. For example, on SEZ, I would have loved to see certainly some more clarity in terms of what is proposed to be done to rejuvenate the SEZ program. So it was certainly falling short in some areas where we could have done much better.
An act of omission indeed. Sanjay Reddy, what's your take on the budget? We were calling it the big reset. Do you believe this is a case of missed opportunity as far as the maiden budget, the all-important Modi's fiscal exercise is concerned?
I think it's being a bit pessimistic because of the fact that the government has been here only for 45 days. They have a good 5 years. I'm not saying they have to wait for 5 years, but this is the first step, and many more steps have to be taken. And I think we should not give so much emphasis on a budget. You know, implementation happens in ministries, it happens on the ground. I think this was more setting the direction, setting the policy. And the way I see it also, you know, that one thing which is different is that he's covered a very broad spectrum of issues instead of focusing on few. And so they've put 100 crores here, 300 crores here, 500 crores here. I see that they're trying to plant a lot of seeds in different areas, which as per their manifesto, they said that they will try to develop and see how it goes. And then wherever things take off, maybe they will invest a lot more as the economy picks up. We cannot forget the fact also that the economy is in a very, very bad shape. And frankly, we don't even know. The minister said that, you know, it's in much worse situation than they had anticipated.
Sanjay, you were speaking about infrastructure. You know, many felt that both infrastructure and manufacturing, where there were quite a few mentions, there was nothing game-changing in the budget. In a sense, is that a little disappointing, would you say?
No, I don't think so. I think infrastructure, actually, I'm very happy. I would say that of everything that in the budget one can talk about, infrastructure is the one which has got special focus. If I may say, three things, if I may say. One is that sector-wise, if you look at, you know, whether it's roads, whether it's ports, whether it's airports, whether it's, you know, certain smart cities, you know, they've made announcements. And those are not things which can be detailed out in a budget. Those will be specified by the ministry and they will take it forward. That's a policy direction and initiative that they've announced. The second thing is in financing, which I think is the biggest problem that infrastructure has, lack of enough funding and low cost funding. There they've done three things. They've said that banks can now raise bonds and with tax benefits, and also have said that there does not, the CRR and you know, SLR ratios don't apply, which is a huge thing for banks, and they've been looking forward to that. So secondly, they've said banks can lend to infrastructure projects for 25 years, which I think is a very, very positive direction. And third is they said infrastructure companies can set up now infrastructure investment trusts, which I think is very similar to REITs, which are set up internationally. And it's a very, very innovative way of trying to bring in additionality of resources to finance equity investment into infrastructure. So that's the second aspect which they've addressed, the financing. The third thing is that infrastructure has been around for nearly 20 odd years, and GVK has been involved in India's first infrastructure project, and we are involved for 22 years in infrastructure, especially PPPs. And we've seen that it's time to overhaul the entire PPP framework, because in the last 3 to 4 years, a lot of things have happened for whatever reason, which has put the whole PPP model in a dilemma, and it's gone into a log jam. So I think instead of trying to do quick fixes of small things, I think what he said is that he's now trying to set up an institutional framework of 3P India, which is giving them 500 crores to re-engineer the entire PPP model and bring about significant changes so that we can look at something which will have a long-term impact, 5, 10, 20 years, and not just do some quick fixes, which in any case the ministries can do. So I would say that manufacturing, maybe, I don't know whether there's anything specific, but infrastructure, certainly I think these are very good things that they've done.
Chanda Kochchar, comment on that. What do you make of the thrust on infrastructure that Sanjay Reddy spoke about? Do you believe there's enough in it to kind of kickstart growth? You for sure would want the infrastructure sector to take off, given the kind of exposure that the entire banking system has to the infrastructure space.
Well, I think the biggest intention is to revive growth and to revive capital expenditure. And if you see, he's spoken about both. One is about declogging the existing projects, making coal available to the power projects, increasing coal production and so on. And on a much broader level, spoken about all the investments in infrastructure, whether it's roads, ports, port connectivity, and so on. So I think it is both a micro and a macro attempt to revive capital expenditure and growth.
Mr. Seshasayee, as somebody who comes from the manufacturing space, in the run-up to this budget, there was plenty of noise that was created around manufacturing front, how we're going to replicate the Chinese model, both by the Prime Minister and, of course, Mr. Jaitley. In the budget today, though, manufacturing finds mention, but seems to be lacking complete specifics. As someone who belongs to that sector, would you concur?
I would accept that criticism, that I think it certainly fell short of a blueprint for rejuvenating manufacturing. My own view is that manufacturing can get rejuvenated only on the basis that we invite investments to come into this country for feeding the global market. And SEZ is one element of that. There are other elements to it, including taxation, including labor legislation, and I certainly didn't hear anything very specific, at least not in a holistic fashion, to say that here is what we're going to be doing in terms of an environmental change for getting manufacturing to be back on its feet. I didn't hear that. Yes, that is, I think, a significant omission.
Swami, I'm going to take this forward with you, because the Chinese foreign minister, when he came in, the only headline was how India is going to follow the Chinese model of manufacturing, how India is going to be the next, not the back office, but the manufacturing hub of the world. What do you make of this budget? Because whatever they say in manufacturing is in bits, small pieces here and there. There is no big vision as far as manufacturing is concerned.
Not only lack of vision, but refusal to look at what the real problem is. The real problem is a new license permit Raj has come. There is no recognition of that in the budget speech, no proposal to overcome it. If you say, look, we thought we were liberalizing and we were called neoliberal policies, it is now neo-illiberalism, because nothing is getting through. And if you say nothing is getting through because of problems of land acquisition, of environment, of forests, of tribals, what did this budget have to say in terms even of vision? Zero. So, why are infrastructure projects held up? It is not just a question of little financing here and there, excuse me. A large number of projects, people tied up the equity, they did the financial closure for the loan, and then when the delays took place, the project was dead. If a 3-year project is going to take 5 years and you have gearing of 70-30, you're dead. So these are the problems that have arisen. And frankly, I have talked to infrastructure people who said, earlier on, we rushed in, we took on the debt risk and the equity risk. In future, please let just the government do that. We will do the EPC contracts, we will do the construction. But the debt and equity risk we can't take on because of the clearances. Sure. As of now, I see nothing in the budget to tackle that particular. So to say, you're relieved of SLR, or, you can get 25-year loans. This is all very well. But how on earth are you going to persuade people to take on the equity and debt risk? You can say this is outside the budget. Excuse me, but if you really want to revive infrastructure, at least you should have given some indication of what is the totality of the vision. I mean, it's been too narrow. On the real problems of the country, I regret to say, we don't have a vision.
We don't have a vision. In fact, you spoke about land, labor issues as well. Sanjay Reddy, best to ask this to you. Disappointed that nothing was mentioned on land and labor reforms. There was so much of anticipation that this government will come and, at least we'll see some commentary as far as labor reforms are concerned. Or are you hopeful that this could get addressed outside of the budget?
I think they have mentioned yesterday in other kind of forums they had mentioned it, but yes, it would have made a lot more meaning if it was mentioned in the budget, especially that they have to look at land, labor reforms, for example, the company law, things like that, which of course I think they're reviewing, and not that, they were obviously spoken about reviewing the entire DTC. So these are things maybe a mention would have certainly gone a long way.
I know we've been focusing a lot on what they haven't done. Let's also focus a bit on what they have done, and that's FDI in insurance, which has finally been hiked to 49%. Chanda Kochchar, it will be good to get your thoughts on this. How do things move from here on for both your insurance subsidiaries?
Again, I think this was a welcome step, because something that has been that's been awaited for very, very long. Helps in two ways. One is for those companies which would look for additional capital. I think it just adds a source of additional capital, but much more than that, even for existing companies which may not need additional capital, I think this just becomes a way to set value benchmarks. It becomes a way to monetize some amount of investment that the domestic partners have put in. So I think it's a very welcome step.
All right, a welcome step as far as FDI and insurance is concerned. But what about the GST and the DTC front? Mr. Seshasayee, do you believe there should have been more details with respect to how they will handle compensation? No commitment was made by the finance minister, even though he broadly said that the constitutional amendment will happen this fiscal itself.
Yeah, but it takes two to tango. I don't think the finance minister can by himself lay a target. The states will also have to play this game. So, I mean, he's conscious of the fact that some of the states might play the spoiled sport, and if he did indicate a timeline, those very states might go against those timelines. And I think, therefore, he was a little cautious, but I'm sure that he has some internal timeline to achieve.
Swami, do you believe there's a certain amount of hypocrisy about this? You're opposed to FDI and insurance when you're in the opposition. You do not want to blink on the GST and the crucial states of Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. And here, when you occupy the treasury benches, everything is a reform, everything you want to bite the bullet on.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's almost a situation of saying, if you played that game, I'm going to play the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Congress suddenly starts having reservations on the GST. Earlier, the Congress states wanted some BJP, some other guys came in the way. I wouldn't be surprised if you get a reversal. I mean, Mr. Jaitley is putting these things forward as though it's almost a done deal, and that is absolutely wrong. It is not even near a done deal. If, for instance, people say, okay, it's a done deal, but I'm going to exclude tobacco and petroleum products. Somebody like Partho Shom will say it's not worth having this. This is not a GST at all. So let's not pretend that we are close to a consensus. Sushil Modi once put it quite well to me. He said, you can say we are about 80% agreed, but the 20% where we are not agreed is enough to sink the thing.
And not just the 20%, even the fact that they do not have a majority in the Rajya Sabha plays a huge spoiler, doesn't it?
It doesn't spoil it if you have agreement among the chief ministers. If the chief ministers agree, it will be a done deal. Second, let's be clear. If you think something is really important, then you can go for a joint session of parliament. But if this is going to require a constitutional amendment, you're going to require a 2/3 majority.
Right.
For that, you really do have to get the opposition and chief ministers on board.
Yes. Right. All right. Final closing comments. Sanjay Reddy, if I may come to you, how are you going to rate this budget?
My rating would be that, because I'm looking at it more from an infrastructure plus perspective, I would say that it's about an 8 on 10, 8.5 on 10, because I'm quite happy with the messaging that has happened in the infrastructure sector.
Okay, you're being a little generous. I'm sure Swami will not agree with that rating at all when we come to him. But Mr. Seshasayee, critics like Swami started off by saying, in fact, this was his take immediately after the budget, that this was almost a Chidambaram budget. Critics would say that, this was, in a sense, Chidambaram's budget, minus the Tirukkural, which was, of course, missing, which is almost always there in Chidambaram's budget speeches. Would you agree with that criticism?
You know, the expectation again has been very high because both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are very articulate people. They are expert communicators, and therefore the expectation was that this budget would go and connect with everybody, would touch the heart. Even if Tirukural were not there, maybe a few Shairis would have done the job there. But I think that perhaps there was a lot of details which I think was intended to address very specific constituencies. So that's different from a blockbuster budget which would have again addressed the mega issues and which the market would have then loved to hear. So I think this was, it did not meet the market expectation, but it must have it met the expectations of 1,000 constituencies and the 1,000 boxes that he ticked.
All right, Swami, a final word from you. What's your verdict? What's your rating on this budget? And are you a little disappointed that Mr. Jaitley chose to quote nobody? There was no humor either in this budget?
I would have forgiven the lack of humor any time if there was more substance. Give me substance instead of humor any time.
But no substance, no humor is a problem.
No, the point is this. He had said many clear things like the need for radical reform, bitter pills. What happened to that vision? What happened to all that Mr. Modi said? He said minimum governance, minimum government, maximum governance. Instead of minimum government, we got 1,000 schemes. New schemes. It was anything but minimum government. Where is the government getting out of? Excuse me, I was listening hard. I couldn't hear anything.
No answer.
So, you know, in terms of what these gentlemen have been saying and what was produced, the gap was so large. That's why I said I am gravely disappointed. I only give 4.5 out of 10.
4.5 out of 10. It's been a while since Swami has given such a poor rating for a budget, but I guess because the expectations were so high, it's only fair that that we analyze this budget a little more critically, isn't it, Supriya? But it's time to announce the winner of our Budget Master Contest. We've been running this contest all day today from 8 a.m. in the morning. We've been asking you 8 queries every hour. The winners of all of that were announced through the hour as well. And the bumper winner who's going to get 5 lakh rupees worth of gold is what we're going to announce right now, and that's Neeraj Mukundrai Mehta from Kandivali in Mumbai. So Neeraj, you're the lucky winner who's going to take home gold worth 5 lakh rupees. He's been watching ET Now all day like thousands of other viewers, and he's the lucky one to have won that Budget Master Contest.
All right, so congratulations then to the winner of that contest who's been watching ET Now. It's also a wrap here on The Verdict with Swaminathan Aiyar. We hand it over to the Times Television Network exclusive interview with Arun Jaitley, India's finance minister, who presented his maiden budget today.
Thanks so much for being with ET Now all day.